Willy Wonka, the amazing chocolatier. Willy Wonka, everybody give a cheer. He's not as clever and so smart, he barely can restrain it. With so much generosity, there's no way to contain it. To contain it, to contain, to contain, to contain. Willy Wonka, he's the one that you're about to meet. Willy Wonka, he's a genius who just can't be beat. The magician and the chocolate whiz, the best darn guy who ever lived. Willy Wonka, here he is.
Wasn't that just magnificent?
Those were up, and they did.
We're smart, and my...
He told me enough.
No, I.
Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. Before I begin the movie review though, Happy Easter everybody! Yeah, because today is Easter, and what better way to be doing that than to be reviewing a certain film about candy, because there's a lot of candy on Easter, and a specific kind of candy on Easter everybody loves. Yes, it's chocolate, guys. So I was thinking, since there aren't a lot of Easter movies, what in the world should I review for the Easter special? Well, it came down to this. It's about a factory. It's based off a Roahl Dahl novel. It's had 2 movies, and I'm going to be reviewing one of them, because one of them I like. That film is going to be for none other than the 2005 version of the Roahl Dahl novel, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which is directed by one of the best directors of all time, Tim Burton. So what's the plot of this? Well, when Willy Wonka decides to let 5 children to his chocolate factory, he decides to release 5 golden tickets in 5 separate chocolate bars, causing complete mayhem around the world. The tickets start to be found, though, with the 5th going to a very special boy called Charlie Bucket. With his grandpa, Charlie joins the rest of the children to experience the most amazing factory ever, but not everything goes to plan within the factory. So how was this made? Well, when the 1971 movie came out, Roahl Dahl disapproved of it. Warner Bros. And British Grey Entertainment entered into discussion for the Dahl estate in 1991, hoping to purchase the rights to produce another film version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The purchase was finalized in 1998, with Dahl's widow Felicity and daughter Lucy receiving total artistic control and final privilege on the choices of actors, directors, and writers. The Dahl estate's subsequent protection of the source material was the main reason that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory had languished in development hell since the 1990s. An Lee, Terry Gilliam, Anthony McGellum, and Spike Jonze were among the Dahl's estate preferred directors for the project. Scott Frank was hired to write the screenplay in February 1999. After approaching Warner Bros. For the job, Frank, a recent Oscar nominee for the R-rated crime film Out of Sight, wanted to work on a film that his children could enjoy. And as an enthusiastic fan of the book, he intended to remain more faithful to Dahl's version than the 1971 film was. Nicolas Cage has been under discussions for Willy Wonka, but he lost interest, and Gary Ross signed on to direct the film in February 2000, which resulted in Frank completing 2 drafts of the screenplay. Before leaving with Ross in September 2001, both Warner Bros. And the Dahl estate wanted Frank to stay on the project, but he faced scheduling conflicts and contractual obligations with Minority Report and The Lookout. Rob Minkoff even entered negotiations to take the director's position in October 2001, and Gwen Lurie was hired to start the scratch of a new script in February 2002. Lurie stated she would adopt the original book and ignore the 1971 film, and Dahl's estate championed Lurie after being impressed with her work on another Dahl adaptation, a live-action adaptation of the BFG for Paramount Pictures, which never got made until 2016. Then in April 2002, Martin Scorsese was even involved with the film briefly, but he decided to direct The Avatar instead. Warner Bros. President Alan F. Horn wanted Tom Shadyac to direct Jim Carrey as Willy Wonka, believing the duo could make Charlie and the Chocolate Factory relevant as to mainstream audiences, but Lizzie Dahl opposed this. And so the project ended up going to Tim Burton and Johnny Depp. And then after that, filming took place from June to December 2004 at Pinewood Studios in the United Kingdom, and rather than using computer-generated environments, Burton primarily used build sets and practical effects, which he claimed was inspired by the book's emphasis on texture. Wonka's chocolate room was constructed on the 007 stage at Pinewood, complete with a fox, chocolate waterfall, and river. And squirrels were even trained from birth of Veruca Salt's elimination. Actor Deep Roy performed each Oompa Loompa individually, rather than one performance duplicated digitally. And Burton shot the film stimulously alongside the stop-motion animated film Corpse Bride, which released the same year, because he directed 2 films in 2005, a live-action and an animated one. And it released kind of around the same time. And even during promotion, too, Willy Wonka-themed chocolate bars were even sold, and a golden ticket contest was launched as part of the film's marketing campaign. And after all of that, the film being shot and marketed and advertised, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory premiered on July 10, 2005 and released in the United States on July 15, 2005 to positive critical reviews, who commented it for its visual appeal and dark tone. It was also even a box office success too, grossing $475 million worldwide, and became the 8th highest grossing film worldwide in 2005. The film received even a nomination for Best Costume Design at the 78th Academy Awards. It remains the highest grossing film adaptation based on a Roald Dahl novel, as well as Tim Burton's second highest grossing film to date. Now, as for my reaction, well, the craziest thing is, a lot of people really seem to despise this adaptation. I keep, everywhere on YouTube, there's just nothing but a negative rant about this version. I don't think I see any good reviews for this version on YouTube, anywhere. Rambo for Life even hated this movie. I think Cody Leach even mentioned he didn't like this movie. Those are YouTubers, some movie reviewing YouTubers I watch. Just about everybody seems to really despise this version. And they love the Gene Wilder version more. And yes, guys, let me say I have seen the Gene Wilder version, and I've never liked it. I always found it overrated. And there's a good, and not even that good of a movie. Never understood the appeal for the Gene Wilder one. Even Roald Dahl himself thought it was shit. And who can blame him? Because there's kind of good reasons he hated it. It's not faithful to the book, and Willy Wonka doesn't even have much of a connection to any of the children at all. However, I always found this version to be honestly better. I remember seeing this in theaters when I was 6 years old, and I've been a fan of the movie since I first saw it. I never ceased to be amazed by the versatility of Johnny Depp. Whether he's a pirate, or writing Peter Pan, or adventurer, or criminal, never fails to entertain. There's nothing he hasn't done in his 45 films, or will not have done or definitely to really amaze any of us. Even in today's world, as these are kind of hard to find work because of Amber Turd. Even as Willy Wonka, he was magnificent. As well. I mean, especially considering this version of Wonka had a pretty troubling past from his own dad. And pretty much who deprived us, Wonka, of Halloween candy when he was a kid, which is just cruel. But of course, the other real star protagonist of the film is Charlie, played by Freddie Highmore, who is pretty much the only sane child that arrives at that factory. He's pretty much surrounded by 4 of the most unlikable children that are probably on camp, that were probably in any kid's movie. And they pretty much do get what they deserve, but here's the thing, though. I don't think the kids are just to blame, though, for their bad behavior in this one. These 4, I think I could blame their parents more. I think the parents were kind of the most responsible for their antics. Because you can just tell by their parents, they clearly have some really awful parents and that don't really parent them well, and are probably just as bad as them when they were their age. You can just, specifically with Violet's mom and Veruca's dad the most. You can tell, their parents pretty much raised them this way, so it's also kind of their fault. We're not raising their kids properly. And one of the major differences between the 2 movie adaptations is Johnny Depp's portrayal of Willy Wonka here. It was apparently inspired by several famous children's TV hosts. And this version of the character is not one of the strongest aspects of the film, but it may not be one of the most remembered performances of Johnny Depp from a lot of people. And of course, I think it's honestly better than Gene Wilder's portrayal. and it's definitely not bad like people make it out to be. And this version actually can be pretty funny at times. I like this version was more comical. And the cast of the 2005 version is pretty strong, with some rare exception I'll get to in a bit. Like in the role of Charlie, Freddie Highmore's just is actually pretty good here. They even have some talented actors to play Charlie's family members, like David Kelly as Grandpa Joe, another common Tim Burton recast like Deb, Helen Bonham Carter as Miss Buckets. And most of the cast performances are impressive, and another example being Deep Roy digitally multiplies the Oompa Loompas, who sing these songs, play musical instruments, and even parody various rock bands whenever like a kid gets in, one of the four kids gets into the traps, and they'll usually play a diss track about them, about how bad they are. And those calling this movie a remake, stop calling it a remake. This movie's not a remake of the 70s film. It's like seeing Peter Jackson remade the 1970s Lord of the Rings, but it's instead a more faithful look at Roald Dahl's novel. Like, Dahl's work is... We all know Dahl's work stands for being darker than your average cave fare, and so Burton was being way more faithful a book than the 1971 movie ever was. And the acting was great too, like including Deb's quirky and original take on Wonka and Highmore's pure Charlie. I love the overall look of the film, including the beautifully bright and colorful, yet still sturdy, semi-dark, and slightly off factory. And another thing too, like with Highmore and Depp, like Highmore and Depp have good Depp actually do have pretty good chemistry in this film, and they have a much better bond here than the 1971 version of the two characters did. Like, this was their next reunion after Finding Neverland, which I don't remember, but I also did like their chemistry in that film as well. So, this is a nice little reunion. And one major change that Burton made, though, which seems to be a point of contention for some, like, is the inclusion of a backstory for Wonka, which brings in Christopher Lee in a good cameo. And the flashbacks themselves run a little bit long and make the action movie stuff for a bit. I like the overall story and how it influenced the eventual ending, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Depp even expands his list of quirky characters. It expands his rage, even. Like, his chocolate mentioned Willy Wonka can be somewhat of a dark character, but his character is great here as well, and the story is just the same as the novel. Young Charlie Bucket's a kid from a poor extended family. Both sets of grandparents are all under one roof and have to pretty much stay in bed all day because they're very old-aged. And lives in a town where years ago all the human workers were given a sack from the Wonka chocolate factory, and it was fully automated. What grief must have gotten for organized labor can just be imagined. Like, well, anyway, Wonka, who's become obsessed with being the chocolate king, he's got no family and no hires. We're not even sure, but he might be solely base. But and of course, he puts decides to let 5 children actually visit his factory. So he puts 5 gold tickets in his yearly Wonka bars that he always sells all over the world. And any lucky 5 kids who gets them will win a trip inside the factory where nobody goes to inside. And pretty much see why nobody works there anymore, and it seems to be only run by one person. And Charlie turns out to be one of the 5, and accompanied by his grandfather, who used to also work for Willy Wonka. And other kids and their guardians, he takes this magical tour of the place, and they meet the little tribe of Oompa Loompas who live and work in the factory. And of course, surprisingly, people can say this movie's dark, but I find this version to be less dark than the 70s version. And we actually see the 4 children alive and well after their mistakes because in our movie, they're pretty much like, well, they're probably dead, they're probably alright, who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck if they die? Or not? And this happy ending is not held back by 4 probably dead children who paid through the roof for their foolish mistakes because we see them alright or severely altered. Like, that was one of my gripes with the 70s version. It just felt too dark. And we didn't need some overly frightening boat ride. Slugsworth was even a useless character that added nothing to the story. And dear God, do I even need to mention the moment where Wonka literally yelled at both Grandpa Joe and Charlie just for touching his things at the end of the movie? That's Willy Wonka to you, good day! Slams the door on their faces. Yeah, that's likable right there. Very likable. Great way to make me like the character. Just have him yell at 2 visitors. Yell at 2 of his guests. Very professional way to run a business. Which was very stupid. And people could say he was testing them. Well, then he could have tested them any other better way, not yell at them and just kick them out. It's no wonder It's kind of no wonder Grandpa Joe clearly got all angry about that. And the major flaw with the Gene Wilder Wonka was that the film lacked much character depth. We never really truly developed the relationship between Charlie and Wonka. And the point at which Wonka selects Charlie as his successor just arrives abruptly, all because Charlie gives him back the little gobstopper, and then he suddenly changes his mind. It comes across more as process of elimination. That's a true connection between the characters. But it's not an issue in Burton's version. We see Wonka's appreciation of Charlie grow throughout the journey inside the factory, and it's discussed with the naughty children as immediately evidence. And we see the humanity-eccentric chocolate maker. Burton always made movies involving turmoil between a father and son, but it shouldn't be surprised they brought this new element to the story of Willy Wonka. Wonka's constant nightmarish flashbacks with either origins of his love for candy, his strict candy-hating dentist father, played by Christopher Lee, and Wonka's emotions are more apparent as well, and he expresses a genuine childlike joy at times when proudly displaying his factory, and he becomes furious when My TV insults Candy, displays an inability to deal with people, and a complete lack of courtesy. The film also differs from, and what's more, and the reason why I like the kids that are at least alive after falling into Wonka's traps, well, because, they may be bad kids, but they did not deserve to die. They don't deserve to die just because they have bad behavior. So I like that Burn at least let them live, because don't think they should be getting killed just because they're bad. Okay, that's not really a fair punishment. So at least Burton has some sympathy right there. The film also even differs from the original, considering there's only 4 songs performed in the movie, compared to the original version, which has literally 9 musical performances. So yeah, I also like this version is not really a musical for a change, which is another thing that bugged me about the original. A good comparison to this would be the Shrek series, because it's also acceptable for younger children to watch during the time this movie came out, and had plenty of adult humor. By saying adult humor, I'm not referring to the innuendos or vulgar comments from the Shrek films, but mostly sarcastic humor. Wonka's indifference to the children is definitely hilarious. Wonka and Charlie had better connection, better chemistry relationship compared to the original. Near the end of the movie, you can see that they begin to bond a great deal, a lot more than the original here. And the majority of the film unfolds in Wonka's factory, which was realized by production designer Alex McDowell as a rather unique environment. It full occurs in elliptical environments, appearing very much as if it was designed in the 60s. The factory is once again populated by the Oompa Loompas, and then realized by a single performer, Deep Roy, replicated digitally to create an entire population of small workers. Once again, the Oompa Loompas belt out a number of funny musical numbers, realized in a variety of styles and dance numbers that are very amusing, and I really like how they did it here. They actually got one guy to come in and play a whole bunch of Oompa Loompas, except with digital clones of himself. And it's very genius how they do it here. And it's obvious that Dahl is trying to teach some values to children about selfishness and excess. Most of those sequences, as each of the children are treated to their fate, are appropriately over the top to get to the point across, but not so much it turns the audience off. And here's the thing. If people think this is a dark movie, which I forgot to mention about earlier, why don't you try go watching some of Tim Burton's other stuff? Batman 1989, Batman Returns, Sleepy Hollow, Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, even Edward Scissorhands. Those films are dark as shit. Batman Returns specifically might be Burton's darkest movie. Batman Returns had a penguin biting off a guy's nose. The penguin even wants to kill infant babies on Christmas Eve even. Yeah, what's the most fucked up thing is Batman Returns is set during Christmas as well, which that puts an even darker tone on the dark tone. And the penguin's dogs are dressed up like skeletons and literally raid and murder a whole bunch of Gotham citizens during a Christmas show in the beginning of the movie. Even when Max Schreck even gets killed by getting a Catwoman kissing him with a taser and putting it in his mouth. Holy crap. This is nearly rated R levels. That movie would be rated R if it were released today. The closest to a rated R Batman movie. Then you have Sweeney Todd, where Johnny Depp played a barber that literally slaughters and murders a bunch of people. Gruesomely. Probably his goriest film. And they had Sleepy Hollow, about a headless horseman that pretty much comes to decapitate just about anybody he's selected to kill. compared to any of Burton's other stuff, this feels very G-rated compared to some of Burton's other films. So, this movie's not that dark. You want an actually dark Burton movie, go watch those ones I mentioned. And, well, okay, yeah, I do like this movie, but I'll admit, I do have some nitpicks with the film. The first thing is that while I did like Christopher Lee during the time he was with us, I just feel the subplot between Wonka's dad, and just Willy Wonka just kind of takes away the mystery of the character. And maybe it would have been a bit more fun if they didn't do that, but although I'll admit, this will be a way better backstory than what that 2023 origin film, which basically is going to tell this story all over again, even though we already saw an origin story in this, and they kind of handled it decently better here. And Christopher Lee still gave a nice performance. And it does have and this subplot did have a good ending, because after like Wilbur Wonka pretty much, that's his dad's name, he disowns Willy Wonka after finding out he's eating candy and disowns him for it. So, and then pretty much took his shop as far away from town as possible so that Willy wouldn't come back. But during that whole time, it turns out he clearly likely missed Willy Wonka, probably regretted his harsh treatment of him over time, because once Charlie convinces Willy to try to reconnect with his dad, they manage to track him down, like all the way in the middle of nowhere on a snowy field. And like Charlie sees that Wilbur Wonka actually kept all the news articles of Willy Wonka's success with making candy, and then he realized that Wilbur Wonka did actually love his son. And actually, and clearly started to realize he was wrong about candy being a bad thing after all, because his son turned out to be very successful with it. And even found out that even Willy still found a way to take great care of his teeth, even despite being a candy maker, even without flossing. And Willy Wonka saw that his dad actually appreciated all of his success and stuff, and actually finally got to reconnect with him in that scene. So that was a good moment here. And there are some nitpicks I have of the four kids. Not just them being unlikable. No, they don't deserve to be nearly killed in traps, for sure. I'm glad they're still alive. Some nitpicks would be with them. Specifically Mike TV. Mike TV literally mentions he hates chocolate, yet somehow found a way to get a golden ticket. Then why was he even among the 5 selected to begin with? Even one of Charlie's grandparents maybe pretty much does make a good point about that. His response is pretty much perfect. He's pretty much like, well, it's a good thing to go into a chocolate factory, you ungrateful little... But then, of course, Charlie's parents see that Grandpa George is about to swear, so Charlie's dad quickly rushes to cover Charlie's ears because he doesn't want Charlie hearing Grandpa George's bad language and stuff. Which was pretty funny moments, and as well, and they also got, well, and did make some honest points that the first kid was probably going to be a big chocolate eater who finds it, and that turns out to be true. And then he also got Veruca Salt just found her ticket unfairly because her dad pretty much spoils her. And speaking of her dad, guys, I feel like the guy who played Veruca's dad just didn't seem that interested in the role. Like, you could have got a somewhat more better actor to play this guy, because he just kind of sounds bored at times, and specifically when Veruca's getting attacked by squirrels, and he's literally just standing to get like, Veruca. Doesn't even sound all that scared and concerned for his own daughter, and doesn't really seem to be, just doesn't seem all that interested in the role. Like, to be fair, a lot of the parent actors, like specifically My TV's dad and Veruca's dad, they just didn't seem interested in their roles here. Like, so maybe they could have got some better actors for those two characters here. And I think of the 4 bad kids, My TV probably has to be the most annoying. Did he deserve that trap fate? Okay, maybe not too much of a screwed up fate, but He's definitely the most annoying for sure, but he does get one funny moment out of me where we're in the TV room where Mike thinks that Wonka could test people in the little TV area after the test of chocolate by transporting it to the TV. He decides to think he's a genius, so he runs up to the thing and even knocks two Oompa Loompas out of the way, which does get a bit of a laugh out of me just every time I watch that part. It's just kind of funny seeing him just magically just shove two Oompa Loompas out of his way. Okay, that's kind of hilarious. And pretty much another hilarious one of the kids' defeats is the Augustus song, where Augustus could clearly hear their diss track, and it's just wiggling around the tube, and the tube he's trapped in because he fell in the chocolate river after touching Wonka's chocolate river with his hands and stuff. But there's just a lot of good moments in here, and another thing I don't really like is that we don't see much of Charlie's parents or the other relatives in this film, because only one that gets the most development is just Grandpa Joe, because I still did love the other family's performances. And I kind of wish we got to see a little more done with the characters. Like, Charlie's dad works at a toothpaste factory, and then he ends up getting fired because, well, a machine pretty much kicks him out of the job. But then he gets called back. They let him work there again by pretty much having him be the shop's handyman that repairs the machine that replaced him. Gets better pay, but I kind of would like to see a scene of him, of like a worker visiting their house and say, "Our machine's broken. We thought we could give you better pay if you come back and fix it." Like, we could have saw a scene of one of the toothpaste factory workers coming back to fix the thing, hiring him again so he can fix their machine routinely whenever it breaks. So, but yeah, so I feel like more could have been done with those characters. But other than that, it doesn't ruin the film for me, because regardless, I do really enjoy the 2005 version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I think it's a good watch. And I know a lot of people will get really pissed off with me for saying that it's better than the Gene Wilder version, but I don't care. In the end, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the 2005 version, is totally worth buying and watching for book fans, Burton fans, Depp fans, and chocolate fans all alike. Anyways, that's it for my review of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Wondering how I'm going to rate Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Here's how I'm going to rate this movie. So overall, if you are a fan of Burton, Chocolate, Depp, or even Roald Dahl himself, then I would definitely recommend watching this movie and buying it and adding it to your collection for sure, without a doubt. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rate Charlie and the Chocolate Factory 2005, I'm going to give Charlie and the Chocolate Factory 2005 an 8.5 out of 10. There we go. That wraps up my review for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And, I gotta say, I hope y'all had a good Easter, or having a good Easter right now, depending on your area. And, you're wondering, why did you review this? Because it's not an Easter movie. Well, there's a lot of chocolate on Easter. So, yeah. I felt like, because this movie's about chocolate, I decided to review it for the Easter special. And I think about it, there aren't really a lot of Easter movies. But until then, that'll be it for this review. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, and don't forget to subscribe to Don G. Corleone.